Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking college basketball. Can you believe it? College hoops is already here, and it starts this Monday, November 4th, 2024. We got about 160 game slate. Some of teams are not playing Division One opponents, but regardless, the season is here. We're ready to talk about it. We got our preview ready, specifically within the Mountain West Conference, because that's what we know. That's what we covered. That's what we talk about. We know the teams inside and out. We were at Mountain West Media Days, and we can't wait for the season to start this upcoming Monday. And joining me for this episode of the podcast, we got a guy that knows his college hoops very well, the Mountain West Conference in particular. This is a guy that broadcasts games on the sideline for San Jose State on 90.5 KSJS, does some good work behind the scenes with the Spear at SJSU, writing and doing all that good stuff behind the scenes and talking to the players and coaches. So, not a better guy to bring on for this very episode. And Jonathan Canas joining us now. John, welcome back to the pod. We had you on last year for some good stuff talking Mountain West hoops, and here we are once again, another season awaiting.
Yeah, thank you for the great introduction, Nick, as usual. And yeah, we were here last year, and just like I was excited last year, I'm excited again, man. I can feel like just the tension and the hardwood just coming up. It's my favorite sport, man. So I'm excited to get into it. I was excited looking through all the rosters and the schedule, so I know you are too. So I'm excited to be back on the sideline, broadcasting games or just watching them in general, because you know that we do that all the time too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, we're dead. I don't know about you, but I'm one of you already know I'm the mid-major hardcore guy that I'll have my eyes on like the Indiana States, like the St. Louis Billikens. Not that those teams are under the
Yeah,
radar, but you already know I'm a little bit more I go deeper in the watering hole than you.
yeah.
I know you're a sucker for the top 25s as well.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. Yeah, I'll go top 25 Mountain West, maybe sprinkle in some WCC around here just because we have some local teams, and that's it. After that, maybe I'll start paying attention to other mid-major teams in mid-season, and all that when
I'll
everything
do
gets
I'll
into the
do the
good
dirty work for you and keep you
stuff.
updated.
Sure, sure. You keep me and everybody else updated.
Hey, well, I'll tell you this much, John. Mountain West was awesome last year. I mean, it was must-see TV every night. I know a bunch of East Coasters where, the games were starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, and Utah State is playing Boise State on a Saturday night, and they're like, "Oh shoot, well we have to stay up and watch it because the game is this good. Like it's as good as any game on the 100 plus slate on a normal Saturday. It was that good." And this was a historic season for the league last year. Six bids in the NCAA tournament. Yes, they were underseeded. You know that, I know that, and everybody that follows the league knows that. I mean, two teams were in the first four, Boise State and Colorado State. The highest seed was San Diego State, and they had themselves a down regular season. Nevada was a 10 seed. Utah State, the surprise of the league last year, was an 8 seed. And New Mexico, who won 4 games in 4 days in the Mountain West tournament, was an 11 seed. Like, it just didn't make sense. But forget about all that. It's a new season, and San Diego State didn't make their run to the Sweet 16, lost to UConn. Utah State won a game. Colorado State beat the fraudulent Virginia squad that made it in last year. So, you know, it was kind of an underwhelming March Madness, but still, overall last year, must see TV. We had the games in San Jose a bunch last year, and they got a bunch of national coverage. And overall, I mean, what can you say about what the Mountain West brought last year?
Man, I think we were lucky enough to just be able to cover the Mountain West, one of the best conferences in the country. And I mean, I have no hesitation saying that whatsoever. And we were lucky enough to get SJSU. They brought in San Diego State, Boise State to San Jose. So when you're bringing in top teams like that, you're getting national coverage all the time. And they held their own for quite an amount of time. But I'm with you on the Mountain West, and whether or not they take a step back this year, that's to be seen. But right now, going into this year, I'm excited for the teams going in, and I think they can keep getting elevated. Heading into the Mountain West and heading into March. I think they have more stuff to prove this year, considering all the realignment rumors and all that. So I'm pretty sure the Mountain West, coaches, players inside and out, they're eager to go out there and prove that this is still one of the top conferences in the country. And, I think it still be. I don't know about having six teams in there, but it's still going to be one of the top must see TV conferences in the country.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. They're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna get 6 teams in it this year.
Yeah,
I mean, for what they had last year, I mean, every team had a winning record in the non-con. Like Air Force of all teams had a non-con. San Jose State for the disaster season they had last year had a winning record in the non-conference. So like, some of that is scheduling, and I get that, and this, that, and the other. But hey, like San Diego State beat Gonzaga last year. There was some big wins on the non-conference that this team got. They got the respect early, and they just all cannibalized each other on their home courts. That's
yeah,
ultimately what it came down to, really. And they got underseeded. It is what it is, but they're gonna try to replicate that. But I do think ultimately there will be a ceiling. I think it will be around that 4 to 5, you know, at large bids, most likely. Maybe you'll get a bid stealer. Maybe we'll talk about a potential bid stealer later. But hey, uh, this league is on the right track. Now let's get to the preview. I will mention to all of our listeners and watchers out on YouTube, we will be doing, Jonathan and I will both be doing a preseason poll. The season starts on Monday. We're going to have our standings 1 through 11 from top to bottom. Jonathan will probably have an outside the ordinary, maybe a team that's higher or lower than the average Jeffrey or Joe. Maybe I will as well. We can argue about that one later when we get to it, but just a little disclaimer there. John, let's get straight into breaking down these teams, because the way the landscape is now within just college athletics, it's just, let's just be honest, it's out of control now with all the transfer portal stuff, and you know how early the window opens. I mean, look, teams in March Madness last year had to recruit in the portal when they're still playing their current season. Like it was just crazy the way things went last year, and that's the way things are at now. I talked to several coaches at Mountain West Media Day, and they say, okay, that's that's just the way it is. I think they would like some rule changes within the portal, but they understand that the portal is here, and they got to adapt to it. You either adapt or you get left behind. It's as simple as that. And a team that got hit by the portal that normally would say, really, we're getting hit by the portal, is a team like Air Force. We'll start right there with the Air Force Falcons, right? This was a team last year that was pretty much not very good, but they did have some of the crazier, outside, like eye-popping wins in all of the
yeah.
league last year, right? They went to the pit and beat the New Mexico Lobos and made their season a whole lot more difficult. And then they won at UNLV by like what, 30 plus points. So they had some crazy wins. Those were their only two Mountain West wins. But the problem is they lose their do-it-all guy, Ritas Petritis. He actually hit the portal and went to Cal, and they also lost Keelan Boylan in the portal as well. So right now it's looking like it's the Ethan Taylor show, who was at Mountain West Media Days, sprinkled in with some Jeffrey Mills, Byron Brown, Luke Carney, and Bo Becker. What do you make of the Falcons here, Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm honestly impressed that they were still able to keep guys like Bo Becker and Ethan Taylor, ET, as we keep hearing a bunch of the Air Force commentators calling him. And remember the thing about Air Force, man, not just the UNLV win, but they gave San Jose State a hard time on both of the wins that San Jose State eventually got in Colorado and in San Jose. The only two wins they ended up having, it's like an MJ Amy shot just to get over the hump over there and get their first win. So I was very impressed, and that was all because of the points that Bo Becker and Ethan Taylor, and obviously Petritis, who was there, but they were really just a 3 point barrage like type of team, just going swinging and praying from beyond the arc, hoping you can make it. I feel like that's kind of how they won against UNLV over in Vegas. It just got way too out of hand for them to catch up. And another problem they're going to have this year, led by Joe Scott. He's a great guy. I always see his great interviews. I kind of feel bad because he kind of has to deal with what he has on this team, right? He has a whole bunch of like 10 new freshmen coming in here, and you have to deal with that in terms of and also kind of play with your seniors who have been here a long time, like Mills and Taylor and Becker. You only got one 7 footer though. That's the one thing I'm seeing that I've seen all across their depth charts here, and it was kind of the same thing as last year. Silahowski, I believe you pronounce his name, 7 footer. They were
He's gonna
talking
be
about,
he's gonna be good. I taught.
yeah,
Hey, I'll tell you what. Taylor and Mills were speaking highly on them when I talked to him a couple
were
weeks
they
ago. Yeah, they were all
okay?
like, "Hey, he's one of those. He's one of those 7 footers. Selahusky is Wesley
Yeah,
Selahusky, where you know he might not be like the ultimate bruiser where he's gonna kill you in the paint and all that stuff, but he's gonna spread it
Right.
out, shoot the threes. Like he fits right in the wheelhouse with the rest of that starting lineup. But if they can get some inside scoring and maybe a little bit more of a shot blocking presence with him this year, who knows? So they talked highly about him potentially being a a bench boost for their team. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
totally with you there. Ethan Taylor, Joe Scott even said, in various interviews at media days, I want him to shoot more threes. Like and
That's
like he
crazy,
led the
dude. All
league in
he does
attempts
is shoot.
last year.
I mean,
Like,
rightfully so. He is a sharpshooter, man. When he's on it, you're in for a long day. And when last year it was a problem because if he went off, you had to try this as well. If he can go off on the other side. If you leave one man open, it's kind of just a pick'em battle. This year it's obviously going to be a whole new thing. But I'm excited for them. And yeah, the reason I brought up Still Husky because I was watching some interviews and they actually jokingly called him a big softy when they were around head coach Joe Scott. So I'm interested to see how he bounces back. He saw some garbage time against SJSU, if I'm not
yeah, he
mistaken,
did.
too,
He
like a
came in
minute
that
or
game.
two.
No, it wasn't garbage time. It was like a
Wasn't it? Oh,
surprise,
okay,
like first half,
right.
like he came in and
It was
it's like,
definitely
well,
a
they were
surprise.
tweaking with the lineup a little bit.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise. I remember watching the game and I was like, "Who's this big 7 footer coming in?" He was a freshman at the time, and the only 7 footer at the time last year as well, listed in that depth chart. So he is gonna have a big role to play because he's the only guy on this team, dude, that's like over 6'8", within a Mountain West team who we saw last year. Man, it was just besides getting the points on the board, we know that it was a rebounding battle and an affair. If you weren't winning the rebounding battle in Mountain West games, dude, you just weren't winning the game in general. So that's the whole thing that I have a problem with Air Force. I love the players they have on their team. I like the coach. I just think that they lack size, man. And if Stella Husky can kind of just provide that boost off the bench, get some rebounds, just play some dirty defense for 10 minutes, give me something there where the rest of your offense can actually start to go off. Maybe you'll have a little more than, 1 or 2 wins in the conference this year because it's looking pretty scary for them when conference comes around because a lot of these other teams are pretty stacked, especially in size, man. You can have all the players you want at Air Force. You have three great talented players, but size will kill you when it comes to any other team, whether it's Fresno State, Wyoming, SJC, or the top dogs like Boise and San Diego. You need size.
Yeah, it's really that simple. And I think, just to close the book on Air Force, they need a consistent third score, I think. Because I think you're going to get it from Taylor. You'll get it from a Mills. And then it's going to be a matter of, okay, well, is Bo Becker going to, hit a couple threes and can he, create his own shot a little bit? Is a guy like Byron Brown going to come along for the ride? Like they need a third score. And if they could get the paint presence, maybe they surprise some people. But man, that front court is going to be a massive issue. And they're going to really need the 7 footer to really surprise a lot of people because when you're going up against Boise State's front court, the Aztecs front court, like it's going
Yeah.
to be an animal, especially when they're on the road, and that is going to be pretty difficult. But they're going to outshoot some teams this year, just like how they did last
No,
year.
that that for
I think
sure.
that will be they might outshoot more than 2 wins. I think that's a
Yeah. Oh, maybe.
possibility.
Yeah.
Let's transition over to the Wyoming Cowboys, a Wyoming Cowboy team that is pretty much brand new this year, led by a brand new head coach in Sundance Wicks, or actually, I shouldn't say brand new because he was an assistant there for 3 years, but he's heading back to Laradice as the head coaching role now, as he's got himself a brand new cast of characters. Literally, Jeff Linder goes from as the Wyoming head coach to the Texas Tech lead assistant role. And here comes Sundance Wicks that is very familiar with Laradice, knows what they're trying to do there, brought in a bunch of dudes that he wants to compete here in 7,000 feet above sea level. And Jonathan, when I talked to him, he says he wants to bring that 90s, throwback team to Laramie. He says he wants to run 3 out, 2 in, shoot a bunch of twos. Like it's getting real down there in Laramie. And I'm very intrigued to see his approach here because he's got himself a brand new cast of characters. Like, actually, like he doesn't have a returning starter coming back. Like it got that crazy. Sam Griffin graduated. Cott is out of eligibility. Brandon Wenzel and Mason Walters hit the portal. They have Cole Henry, a Northern Iowa transfer, like the Kobe Newton, who was with the program last year, came off the bench, but brand new pieces here. I honestly have no idea what to make of this team. Sundance Wicks, when I talked to him on the one-on-one, he said it could be any guy on any given night that leads our team in scoring. And in some ways it's like, okay, like I'm optimistic about that. I think it helps that he plays in the altitude. I'm very excited to watch this team based on, the way that he was talking about the way the team's going to play. But man, this is going to be a tough team to gauge I feel like on a night to night basis. And I'm very interested to see this team on the road because if they get down 10 nothing in a hostile environment like the Pit, oh
Yeah.
boy. Like how does the script change there? And I'm interested to just see who's the alpha on this team because I honestly have no clue.
Yeah, I wouldn't, looking up and down the depth chart, I wouldn't be able to tell you who's the alpha in this. And it could be, Sundance Wicks for all we know. I know most of the time coaches would rather have players, be the best part of their team, but maybe it's the head coach on this case. He's also just coming off the Horizon League Coach of the Year at Green Bay. Before that, spending 3 seasons at Wyoming. So he's coming back home, man. And can you imagine like coming back home to where you want to be, where your family's like originally from? I like whatever you just called Laramie right now. I haven't heard that.
Laradice?
Whatever. Yeah, that was actually pretty cool. Just to go back to your road problems there, they were 9-5 at home last year. So, which wasn't really like considering what they were last year. With Sam Griffin and Cott, I understand they had a great backcourt there, but I, I'm not sure what to make of them in terms of in general. But at home, I still expect them to be, a force there at least. Laramie always shows up. I know we say that for football, but for basketball, in a condensed environment where it's a little more intimate. It's just, only a few fans can really come in. Those guys really show out. Not a lot to do over there in Laramie. And when you got a man who's literally from there, bringing that old school mentality back, I've heard this guy talking in his interviews. Man, he's wild, and the type of wild that I like. The Tim Miles
Energy.
type of yes, the Tim Miles type of energy. This guy made me. This guy sold me on Kobe Newton. Is over here averaging like 4 points a game last year. He was over here talking him up like he's a second coming of Sam Griffin. I know he's not, but like just the
We'll
energy that he's
see.
bringing in. Yeah, I know it could. Who knows? It was just a small sample size. I know he was a bench player, but I'm excited for them. They finished 15-17, 8-10 last year. I had them like at 3 wins last year. Like no way these guys are going to come in
Well,
and
they
like
hit three
actually
game
be
winners last year at
respectable.
the Horn.
That's true. Yeah, that's
They
true.
did.
That I guess that'll help you a lot.
I will
Well,
say
Cott
this.
hit a couple of those, didn't he?
Yeah, he hit like two of them, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I will say this, and they do this every single year, since they've kind of regressed from their tournament team in like 2021 or 2020, whatever year it was when they were
Yeah.
like second in the league. They're gonna catch a heavyweight. Like a heavyweight is gonna go down in this place in Laramie on one of those like random Wednesday night games,
Yeah.
and like it's just they're gonna get a team or two. I remember the wackiest result maybe in the league last year was when Colorado State was like up 10 with 40 seconds left, and they came all the way back, forced overtime, and the Cowboys won in overtime. So yeah, this is I don't know. I'll just say it right now. I think it's going to be a little bit tough for them. I think year one with Sundance Wicks might be a little bit difficult, but I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, for what he did at Green Bay last year in one season was
Yeah.
incredible. Like Wisconsin Green Bay is bottom of the barrel in the horizon every year. He had them like a top five team in the league. Like they were one of the, for a mid-major team in the horizon, great story last year. And the fact that he gets to come back to his old stomping grounds is cool. It's a great story. And after talking to him in person, I'm definitely rooting for him. Let's go to Fresno State. Fresno State. This is kind of you might as well throw them in the same tier as Wyoming. Not a whole lot coming back, and they got a brand new uh head coach as well. But let's start out with their players, and then we can get into the coach. Because their one starter or their one, rotational piece that is coming back is
Yeah.
Jalen Weaver. And I think he's going to be the guy that's probably running the show here. He came off the bench. We all know Fresno's bench last year was one of the best in the league. With Yap and Weaver and with those two headlining. And, now They basically, they lose Isaiah Hill, who was their, do it all point guard. Pope is gone. Bawachi hit the portal. He's at Villanova. Andre's not there anymore. So it's basically Jalen Weaver and a whole bunch of dudes that are coming from junior college. Like that,
Literally, yeah.
that's what we got from this team. They got Jalen Weaver running the show. I think he's going to be pretty good here. Like he's going to be averaging 15 a night at least. I
Yeah.
personally think. And their first year head coach Vance Wahlberg. I mean, if you have this going for Fresno, he coached at West Clovis High School, and he was the head coach at Fresno City College, so he knows the area well. I will say that. But this is another one of those question mark teams, and I honestly can't make a realistic judgment about this team until you see them play, because I don't know how those JUCO kids are gonna play.
Yeah, same boat as kind of Wyoming. Something I will say about Vance Wahlberg, he spent 4 years, like you said, at Clovis High School, but he does have a lot of JUCO, ties as well. So he brought in a whole bunch of JUCO transfers. I'm imagining, just we don't know a whole bunch of who those guys are coming from community college, but I'm sure he does within that Fresno area. I know that he liked the guys that he picked. Weaver, I'm excited for him. He played in all 33 games last year, but he didn't see too much action. I mean, how can you when you got Isaiah Pope and Isaiah Hill? Starting they had some great reserves over there, and as well as Donovan Yap. He was just playing and fighting for minutes, week in and week out. So I'm excited for him. His last 4 games, though, he ended in double-digit figures. So you know that he's coming into this, as the number one. Very excited to come in with Vance Wahlberg. And just to speak on a little bit more, they also got rid of or not rid, but the Brazilian Leo Colomario. I was very high on him last year too. We had the chance to call a game right there in Fresno.
Yeah,
Boy, could that guy move as well, man! And Xavier Ducell as well. Just another
he's at
3 point.
Nevada now.
Yeah, so another key piece they're losing alongside all the other transfers and the guys who already have graduated. I don't know what to make of this team. I do have them at around bottom three here, just because of who they lost. They were 12-21 last year, 4-14 in the Mountain West. I don't expect too much of a change from that end. I'm very impressed. We just mentioned the Horizon League Coach of the Year, and the last time they brought in David Douglas, who was the Horizon League Freshman of the Year under him in Green Bay. He's going to be coming over here. He averaged 8 points a game, and he's going to be over here in Fresno in Mountain West. Eventually, going to go up against his old coach in Wyoming.
Love it.
So I'm excited to see Weaver alongside with Douglas. The Horizon League Freshman of the Year, just going up there and just trying to see what they can do against these other teams. I know they're high on the JUCOs they brought in. Amar Aguilar was the guy they sent out to Vegas from Triton
He was
College.
like one of the best JUCO players out there.
Dude, he was
So
the
yeah,
D1 player of the
that
year.
guy, he's going to be an impact player. There's no doubt he's
Yeah,
starting along with
they brought him out
Weaver
to
and your guy from Green Bay.
they brought him out to Vegas. He's for sure going to be a impact right here, right away. And he was a D1 player of the year over there, averaging 22 points a game. Obviously, huge difference between JUCO and D1 basketball. And you're coming into one of the best conferences in the country. But that's all I have to say about Fresno. They lost a lot of pieces, man, besides their head coach, obviously.
Right.
They're kind of in a tough boat. I do feel for Vance Wahlberg there, but I did see that he has a lot of besides high school. This guy has over 40 years of coaching experience at every single level you can think of, whether it's D1 basketball, NBA basketball, high school. This guy was basically just chilling in retirement mode, I would imagine, before he received the call in Fresno State. And why not go to, just across the street over here and coach your D1 school that everybody respects you in? I don't see them doing anything this year with the ties that Wahlberg has, though, and this team that he has of young guys right now. I do think that they can eventually become something more dangerous with years to come. I think I'm starting to see that foundation with these guys that he's bringing in right now. It's a small sample size, but they're definitely bottom tier, and they're still going to be around that 3 to 4 win wise when it comes to conference.
Intriguing hire, though. I will say that. Intriguing hire for the Fresno and Central Valley
Yeah,
Tides. Again, tough team to gauge, like I said, just because they
for
haven't even
sure,
played a game yet. I want to see what they look like first. Utah State Aggies. We talked about
oh
them
boy.
in the intro. Pretty much, the surprise of the league last year. Danny Sprinkle comes over from Montana State to Logan. He does his thing. He brings his main man, Great Ozabor. He wins Mountain West Player of the Year. Darius Brown from Montana State to Utah State. Mason Falslev wins Freshman of the Year. I mean, the list goes on what they had. Josh Aduje, like they were just incredible. They won every close game possible. They defended home court. They stole all the road games that they possibly could, and they won the league last year, 14-4 in Mountain West play. Just unbelievable what they did. Regular season champions ended up beating TCU in the first round before getting demolished to Purdue in the second round. This year they got a brand new head coach because Sprinkle obviously decided to go bigger and go for a much more desirable job. He's at the Washington Huskies now, but they got Jared Calhoun, who I think is just going to come right back up and pick up the pieces here. Head coach at Youngstown State for 7 years, finished first and second in the Horizon the last 2 years, and that's a deep Horizon league, Jonathan. Like that league goes like 8 teams deep. Like that's like the ultimate like just throw a dart and pray it hits the middle as far as like picking a conference tournament winner there. Like the Horizon League is very wacky when it comes to March time frame, but. He was always consistent, never won the league. Now he's coming over to Utah State. A lot of guys don't come back here. Darius Brown's gone, Ozabor's gone. They do retain Falslev and Ian Martinez. That's a good, foundation. But he hit the portal pretty hard too. Like he brought in Drake Allen from Utah Valley, who's going to be a good piece. Like they just hit all these mid-major dudes, like Dayton Albury from Queens out in
Yeah.
North Carolina. Like Abram Gutierrez from Stetson. Like they just went in like low major, mid major, and they just said, let's go stack up on depth and size and shooting and you name it. Calhoun knows all those mid major teams and all those diamond in the rough type schools where I'll go find a guy and make him something. That's what he kind of has here at Utah State, and he's got Falslev and Martinez to do it. I think the home court's going to always be good. I feel like Utah State, maybe not first place, but they're going to be in the conversation again because of the head coach and all the depth that they got. I could be wrong, but this program just delivers now every year.
Yeah, I always have high expectations when I think of Utah State, and I'm kind of getting a sense of deja vu here again. We were talking about these guys last year, talking about Danny Sprinkle and the guys they brought in their first year, and here we are again. They're the new head coach, new guys, and one of the good things that they're bringing back here is, like you said, Ian Martinez, All Mountain West, and Foslev. Man, did he show out as well during the Mountain West tourney? Foslev, he's automatic when he can get to the bucket from 2 pointers at least. He was averaging 11 points a game. I'm expecting him to take a major step forward alongside with Ian Martinez. How about Ian Martinez, man? This guy's gone through like it feels like 6 head coaches throughout like
Yeah, that he
his whole
mentioned that.
college career, dude.
He mentioned that
Oh,
at
like
media
he mentioned
days. He
that
was all
during
like, "Yeah, well,
okay,
I had like two coaches at Maryland, and then you know
that's
now this is
right.
gonna be like what my second coach here. Like he had some interim guys along the way. Like, yeah, that is pretty crazy. And kudos to him that he's adapted because man, that's definitely in a tough spot. You see the way kids are now. The second the head coach dips, so are the players. So
Yeah.
this is I yes, this is his third school, but man, that is Darius Brown was the guy in full command and control last year. I feel like he's gonna be the big centerpiece here. I think Drake Allen's gonna be very good from the Utah Valley transfer. Who knows? He might start. He may come out the bench. Who in the heck knows? But man, you're gonna see like if somebody gets into foul trouble on Utah State, they're gonna just be able to come right back in and here comes another body that can make an impact. Like they got a lot of depth on this team, and I don't think people are gonna realize how much depth they have until 3 weeks into the season. So Utah State should be in the conversation once again. And like we said, with that home court, they're definitely a force to be reckoned with. Jonathan, let's transition into our San Jose State Spartans, a team that we know a ton about. They got head coach Tim Miles entering year 4. It was safe to say that it was pretty much the year from hell for the Spartans last year. Only 2 conference wins. They looked promising in the first half, but they lost every close game possible. There was a clear weakness with the front court. They addressed those issues in the portal. And yeah, when Boise State and San Diego State came there last year, they couldn't finish those games off. They got that ridiculous stomach bug that, all of the players got, and even Coach Tim Miles got on the and it was impacting their whole road trip. But let's just be honest, this was a team that wasn't competitive on the road last year. They had the historic season led by Amari Moore, and where they were one of the best rebounding teams in the league 2 years ago. Tim Miles trying to get back to that, but they gotta defend home court. They gotta get better on the road. Uh, they do hit the portal hard because they got hit by the portal hard. MJ, Amy, Alvaro Cardenas gone. They depart. Anderson graduated. Tibet Gorner hit the portal. I mean, new foundation here, but I like what they did here. Throwing our bias out the window here. Donovan Yap, we thought he could start at Fresno State. Will McClendon brings in some six-man experience. Dacha Duje, six-man, Mountain West six-man of the year coming from Utah State. Their front line is much better. We obviously got Rob Viola coming back, didn't play a game last year. Sada Naganga, Sadadrian Hall has starting experience from Stephen F. Austin. Like this team, I feel like is going to be feisty in the Mountain West, and especially at home where whatever I feel like a lot of people say that San Jose is the quote unquote sleepy spot in the conference just because of the way the crowd is compared to every other environment. But San Jose State much more better than 2 wins this year compared to last year, I feel.
Oh heck yeah, man! And not just 2 wins over Air Force either. I think they're going to get some wins over some pretty top teams as well. I'm excited for them too because obviously you lost Alvaro Cardenas. He was top 30 in the nation in assists, which always surprised me. I'm always going to mention that because he didn't really have too many people to pass it to besides MJ Amy, man. So that was obviously a big loss. But I think they kind of offset that with Yap and McClendon. I like the fact that they're just as tall, but also a little lengthy as opposed to Amy and Cardenas. I think that'll help them in the defense and just dealing with all of these backcourts as well in the Mountain West. Not to even mention, just getting into the offense here, bringing in guys like Joshua Deje, man. You're bringing in someone who's, just creating a winning environment, which is something I think Tim Miles has been trying to establish here. He really put an emphasis on that with Amari Moore. Amari Moore just brought that winning type of sensation. And Oduje here coming with Danny Sprinkle and Gray Osmore, who we just talked about at Utah State. He's coming here and, he hasn't really been on a losing team. And I don't think he wants to start doing that now. And I love that fact. You're starting to bring in a winning culture. There's a better word for it here. And I think he can start to do that here with Donovan Yap, McClendon, and Chris, unfortunately, the Wise injury, but you still got Latrell Davis as well coming off the bench. Dude,
Best
these are
kept
some
secret in the
pieces
league, I
here.
feel like, right?
Dude, seriously, man. This guy, in his limited amount of time, can put up 8 or 9 points in a hurry. And then after that, he gets to sit down, and all of a sudden, Donovan Yap and Will McClendon check back in, man. That just seems like way too much to deal with, no matter what type of offense you are. And you're bringing back guys like, besides Viola, you might not see a lot of time, but Adrame Jong, I love the fact that he stayed here. When he was recruited out of high school, he was top 100 here, and obviously things haven't really panned out in his college career the way he wanted to. But I would have loved to have seen the recruiting speech from Miles if there was one to get Adrame to stay here. Obviously, your playing time will dip a lot, but you got Viola back. You got some transfers in from Seton Hall. And the guy for the Oregon State transfer as well from South Sudan, standing at 7'2".
Joel Mariel.
That's
Hey, I'll
crazy,
tell you,
man. So
I will say this, and to all the Spartan fans out there, I feel like Joel Mariel from the transfer from Oregon State is going to be what Ibrahima Diallo was 2 years ago. Just
wow,
a guy that you're not going to be able to get a shot off in the paint. I mean, he had 5 blocks in the exhibition game for crying out loud. And I understand it was a non D1 opponent, but I feel like San Jose State is going to get back towards, being a vicious front court, strong on the glass, second chance opportunities, which led to all the success that they had 2 years ago. I think it's just a matter of is can there be some consistency on offense and with Donovan Yap with let's hope he brings out the Kobe Grinches this year with the lime green shoes because it worked out pretty well last year. And Josh Aduze taking on of a leadership role this year. Will McClendon with his 3-point shot. Just very intrigued to see, what all these transfers can bring because I will say this. These are a lot of these guys that are going to be in the starting lineup this upcoming Monday versus Western Illinois were all bench guys last year. And now
yeah,
they're having much more of an exceeded role. excited to see how they mesh together out in San Jose. But we'll see how the Spartans do in year 4 of the Tim Miles campaign out in San Jose. Let's go to Colorado State, where Tim Miles is very familiar with in the Colorado State Rams, as he was formerly a head coach there. Now Colorado State with Nico Medved, and he's done a terrific job. Led the team, his Rams, to the tournament last year, ultimately losing in the first round. Colorado State definitely got themselves a much different team this year. And I'm very intrigued to see this team win in Fort Collins, because they don't have their do-it-all guy anymore in Isaiah Stevens, one of the most all-time Mountain West player. Has every program record that within the Ram program that you can think of, and now he's not there anymore. So what's life going to be like after Isaiah Stevens? I'm expecting a whole lot more of Nick Clifford this year. He might be running the offense a whole lot more, because Stevens was the guy pretty much doing it with the ball in his hands. They got Jalen Lake coming back. Rashawn Bemba, who was a freshman last year, he could provide some front court presence. They're going to need him. But Jonathan, this is a team that not only lost Stevens, they lose Joel Scott, the 3-point shooter off the bench. Patrick Cartier, front court presence. Josiah Strong, a veteran presence, and Joe Palmer as well. Or excuse me, Joel Scott was the D2 player of the year 2 years ago, and Joe Palmer was the sharpshooter off the bench. Regardless, that is a lot of rotational pieces that are gone beyond Stevens that this team is going to have to recover from. They do hit the portal, quite a bit, and they kind of had to. But man, I don't really know what to make of this team, because we haven't really seen a Nico Medved team outside of Isaiah Stevens. And when Stevens did get hurt 2 years ago, this team was kind of no good. Now they do have Clifford to kind of, run the show here a little bit. And I think he's going to get a lot of the attention. He's going to get a lot of the shot attempts, and he's going to light up the lamp. But he's going to need some other guys to come along for the ride here. Question mark team in the Rams here because of the Isaiah Stevens departure.
Yeah, question mark. But to be honest, I'm not too high on them this year. And I kind of ate my own words last year. I wasn't too high on them
You
at all
did,
last year
big
either.
time.
I went in on them, man, and these guys started off like what 12-0 or something like that in non-con. These guys
Yeah,
went as high as number 13 in the country, I think, for the
good
first
call.
time in
Yeah.
their school history. Yeah, with Nico Medved. So, dude, they're not going to do that again, and I don't think they're going to do that ever again for a long time. They ended up beating the Cavs in their first fours. Shout out to them for doing that, and representing the Mountain West and NCAA. But dude, all those guys you just mentioned leaving, that is way too much to deal with. And
Yeah, it's a
Clifford, I
lot of
always saw him
production.
as Clifford. To his credit, 12 points a game, 7 rebounds last year. I've always seen him as a more of a defensive presence, just locking up your number one guy. This guy was kind of like the third option last year here on the team. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles this, because he can be the number one, but he's not a playmaker as per se. So I want to see who's going to be the playmaker on this team. They did bring in a Purdue transfer, Ethan Morton, coming out of here. So I'm excited to see what he can do. He was a top 100 out of high school, but didn't see too much action in Purdue in all his 4 years there, because they just had a great backcourt themselves all those years. I would imagine this year he's going to be coming in here and running a great offense for Nico Medved, trying to get these other guys involved. But I'm not too high on them at all. I don't think they're going to be starting off as hot as they did last year. I do feel for them and the guys they lost, but that's a whole that's what the Mountain West is dealing with. I think the most competition they have this year in this schedule in terms of non-con is Washington and Colorado, with the Buffs coming up. And to me, that kind of explains who they are. I don't think they're going to be too much trouble in the Mountain West or the top dogs this year. I like Medved a lot, his coaching style, but this is a lot of turnover to deal with. You're bringing in transfers, and I like the transfers that they brought in. They brought in Bowen Barn, Missouri Valley Six Man of the Year from 2021, but you know, give me something else other than that. To me, I like the other names that stand out from these other schools, but Colorado State to me, for some reason, just didn't bring in the guys that I think can lead them to that next level that they set last year.
Yeah, I before we close the book on the Rams, uh, both Neat Clifford and Jalen Lake were speaking high on Kyan Evans. who, saw some time is in March in Mountain West tournament play, which was a little bit shocking. The fact that they had all those the plethora of guards there, and he
Yeah.
saw some time even in the San Jose State first round game. He was playing, and maybe that's kind of Coach Medved saying, "Hey, we gotta work him in here," and with a guy like Clifford in a high leverage game because we know that Stevens is going to be gone after our run's over. So both of those guys, when I talked to them at media days, liked Evans a lot and what he was bringing to the table. So on top of the transfers in that Colorado State hit in the portal, that could be a name in house that was on the team last year that could be an impact piece. Let's go to Southern California with the San Diego State Aztecs now. San Diego State starting to become the cream of the crop of the Mountain West, kind of representing what the league is all about, especially when it comes to March Madness, going back to the Sweet 16. Down year for the Aztecs, though. This was a team that was really good at home, obviously, but a little bit vulnerable on the road. Like when they were going to, a Boise or a Colorado State or, some of the top tier teams, quite honestly, you could just chalk up the L because those teams were that good in the front court or that good on their home court. And San Diego State, I feel like they were just a little bit overwhelmed. They couldn't play, their type of game that they probably could play at Viejas Arena. And the Aztecs, couldn't get it done in a lot of those road games that we're accustomed to seeing. A little
Yeah.
bit of a down year for Dutcher, but look, he still got a 5 seed in the tournament, still made it to the championship game at the Mountain West tournament. And it's crazy what he does every single year. This year, this might be kind of like kind of one of those years for him. Like, hey, you don't have the 6 year seniors anymore. Now you kind of go like, gotta start working in these freshmen like a little bit more. We kind of saw him do it that a little bit more, last season, but I feel like he's gonna have to bring up the youth here, and he's gonna be forced to play some of these guys. Reese Waters comes back, who came from USC, was kind of one of their big time shot makers last year. Miles Bird, who's going to be a starter for this team this year. Nick Boyd, the Florida Atlantic transfer, which they really like, and he's going to be very good. But, you know, for a team that loses Jaden Ledee, their do-it-all guy last year, could have won Player of the Year. The league was that good last year. Lamont Butler's gone. Micah Parrish departs. Elijah Saunders is at Virginia, and Jay Powell's out of eligibility. So they do bring in Wayne McKinney, who's probably going to be maybe their sixth man on this team from the University of San Diego, the Toreros. But San Diego State, Jonathan, I'm very interested to get your take on this team because of all the moving parts and the pieces coming in. But you got to believe in the culture here, right?
Yeah, man, call me a little biased, but I understand that they have a whole new plethora of players coming in, and we're not going to be seeing juniors and seniors like you have been seeing the last couple of years within this Dutcher lineup. But I'm still pretty high on them. I still think they're top four in this Mountain West team just because of the experience here with Dutcher. They were 11-7 in the Mountain West last year, but like you said, man, all of a sudden when time came to play in Mountain West tournament, these guys all of a sudden went all the way to the championship, losing to the Lobos, and then went to the Sweet 16 just to lose to the Yukon again. So for them, it's just kind of a matter of getting there, right? And they're kind of like the last team you want to see once you get there. San Jose State, Colorado State maybe can go off a crazy run during the regular season, and then just to see San Diego State maybe in the first or second day in the Mountain West tournament, that's not going to be a good look for them, man. And especially because of the championship mentality they bring in here. And how about the respect San Diego State has gotten now over the last couple of years? You mentioned the transfers who left, but Lamont Butler, dude, this guy left to Kentucky. Saunders
He's
went to
probably not going to even
Virginia.
start at Kentucky.
But that's so crazy, right? And Saunders went to Virginia. Micah Parrish went to Ohio State. Like all of a sudden, these other big schools, they're over here. Hey, let's go poach some players from San Diego State. And San Diego State, I'm not sure what their whole situation is regarding NIL, but I think they're in a situation where they probably could have brought them back, and maybe they didn't want to. And I feel like that's more of a Dutcher type of thing. And I'm excited for the guys these guys are bringing in. I think Miles Bird, dude, is a dog, man. I love his passion, how he plays. And maybe that's because just judging from the interviews, he's a lot more lively than Reese Waters. One of the things I heard Dutcher just saying about in the exit interviews last year was saying that there wasn't really a vocal leader last year, which is something that I found quite surprising considering all the guys who were on the team like Jaden Ledee, like Lamont Butler, like Trammell. I was surprised those guys weren't vocal, but I imagine that Bird is going to be that guy who he may not be the best player on the team for sure, but I think he's going to be that guy who's going to be like set everything in line here in the huddle, getting everybody together, and on top of that, you got Coach Dutcher and Velasquez there to help you guys. I think that's a big and massive front there. And man, I know it's not too much to dwindle off of, but I saw the stats for their exhibition game. And just tell me why this dude was playing Magoon Guath, their 7'2"
Yep, I was
freshman.
just gonna get to him,
I
Jonathan.
was like, no way, Brian Dutcher's doing that. I started laughing when I saw that and freshman right next to it, just because you and me have called some games and watched so many games for these guys. We were used to seeing juniors and seniors throughout the whole depth chart getting minutes, and all of a sudden, exhibition game one, you got like a real freshman out here logging in real minutes. I found that just hilarious. Like, I want your thoughts on that because
Oh, I
I
will
was so
say
shocked.
this. Hey, I know we said Latrell Davis for San Jose State, the best kept secret in the league. Magoon Guath might be the best kept secret in the league. I'm being for real. Like I know he didn't play last year. He redshirted. He had an injury. He was sitting on the far side of the bench, but he got to embrace that culture. Dave
Yeah,
Velasquez jumping off a seat. With the pride on the defensive end. Coach Dutcher and all the IQ that he brings to the table. Picking the guy like Jaden Ledee and his brain that was so successful in the front court. Magoon Guath, I'm telling you, Jonathan. San Diego State, they always reload this and that. Matt Bradley was their guy, 2 years ago, kind of like their all-out scorer. He was their alpha as far as we need a bucket, we'll go to Bradley. And I know a lot of people didn't see that in March Madness 2 years ago, but he was their guy. And Jaden Ledee was their guy last year. I this might sound kind of crazy, but Magoon Guath might be their guy this year. And I feel like a lot of people haven't seen him, but everyone that comes out of San Diego State says he is for real. And I can't wait to see him. I'll tell you this much. If I know we said kind of Dutcher is kind of obligated now, he has to kind of play the underclassmen now. If he's playing the freshman in the starting lineup, for good reason. We'll leave it.
yeah.
We'll
I mean,
leave.
you obviously earned that if you're there with Dutcher. Dutcher's an intense
Right.
guy, man. Even whether he's on the floor or in his interviews, he's an intense guy. And if you got guys who are kind of like sophomores, like Miles Heidi, who haven't earned that starting spot, and you put in Magoon Guat there, yeah, like you said, Nick, it's for a good reason. They did bring in some transfers, and for some reason, San Diego State, when they bring in transfers, even when it's from mid-major schools, man, like somehow they always find a diamond in the rough. And
I
I'm excited to see like who the guy they brought in guys from Middle Tennessee and from Brown, and I was like, not too eye popping, but I don't know. When the season comes into play, they always find the guys who can play, put the clamps on defense and do what you got to do when it comes to playmaking. And really, that's all you can ask for when you're in a Dutch's offense. And I'm excited to see what they can do this year. I'm not going to put them on the bottom of the totem pole here just because they lost a plethora of players. This has always been a Dutcher led team, and I think it will continue to be with Reese Waters there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, people that watch the Mountain West every night, you can believe in the culture that they bring on both ends. It starts with Dutcher. Dave Velasquez brings that intensity. They're his assistant head coach. And hey, I'm gonna be completely honest. I know some things about Wayne McKinney, from San Diego. He was like pretty much their, one of their starting pieces last year for the Toreros last year. But we were kind of head on last year with that Jay Powell was going to have an impact because of what he was able to do at Campbell 2 years ago. And he came right in, like you said, Jonathan, and just fit right in. Like he had some big time blocks. He was a great defensive presence. It stinks that they don't have him anymore, but San Diego State going to be in the conversation once again. Let's talk about UNLV, the Running Rebels, because this was the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde team last year. Couldn't figure him out at all. They would get like the crazy win, like they would, they beat Creighton last year or something like that. Like they took St. Mary's into double overtime, and then like they would lose to like Southern University representing the SWAC at home. Like they were a weird team last year to say, and that weird is kind of, putting it lightly. But hey, they got Deedon Thomas back, and I got to see him in person last year in San Jose, and man, dog. It's that simple. Like what he could do and take over a game, and he was a freshman, like he was an 18-year-old,
Yep.
and he's going to be entering his sophomore season. He's clearly their do it all guy. Uh, he was awesome to watch. Like just the level of difficulty of shots and like just his IQ and navigating the offense as a freshman was just so impressive to me. They have Rob Whaley back in the front court. Jalen Hill, who tore his ACL at San Diego State last year, he's back in. Big 12 guy, came from Oklahoma, could grind on both ends. They got some other pieces off the bench, but losing the Boone brothers for to eligibility is not great. And Luis Rodriguez, who was kind of their number two guy last year, him not coming back is not so great either. What do you make of the Rebels here? Because I feel like this could be the team like how they were last year. They have all the upside in the world to make the NCAA tournament, like how they had that second half surge last year. But it can also be a team that just completely falls under expectations. Rebels got a very wide barometer as far as how good or bad they can be, John. At least I think.
Yeah, I have them in that kind of same tier as the Colorado State Rams, maybe just a step higher than them. They lost a lot of people, including Jackie Johnson. I'm interested to see how Dean Thomas does with this new plethora of players here. You know, he had 5 assists last year as a freshman, the co-freshman of the year for the Mountain West too, which is kind of insane. He just came onto the scene and all of a sudden made this crazy name for himself with with guys that were injured too. The Boone brothers were injured for a better part of the year last year too. Some of them missed some time. So a lot of that was him and Rob Whaley just coming in here and doing their thing. And I think they really showed out in the Mountain West in the tournament, right? They lost in OT against San Diego State in the quarterfinals. I believe we were watching that game in person
Yeah, we
too,
were
Nick. We kind of tuned out because UNLV were down big time for a little
big.
bit, especially in the first half. And I think I was just dwindling on my phone. All of a sudden, fourth quarter, these guys are storming back here. Dean Thomas, Rob Whaley, looking like second comings of great players over here, and they ended up falling 3 points shy to San Diego State in OT, and they showed out in the next tournament too. I mean, they ended up beating Princeton, Boston College in the NIT, ended up
They had a
losing to
great
Seton
run.
Hall. Dude, they had a great run to end the season. I think that's a lot to build off if you're Kevin Kruger in the offense. But the only reason I'm not sold on them is just because of the players that are here right now, and they didn't really bring in too many people. Like one of the names that I saw they brought in was Jace Whiting, like from Boise State. Like, come on, man. Jace
Just
Whiting's a
another
great
guy to
player.
run there.
Right, right.
It's a filler for when Thomas hits the bench. But yeah,
Yeah, totally
Whiting
makes
Whiting
sense.
was limited at Boise State last year. I
Yeah,
will say that. Yeah, they're kind of one of these teams too, right? Like they kind of just like hit the portal and it's like all right, like that for kind of from all over the place, like Jaden Henley from DePaul, Jalen Bedford from Oral Roberts, like they
yeah,
kind of go all over the place. I'll tell you what, if they had, this roster heading into this season with the momentum that they had last year and they had both of the Boone brothers coming back, oh boy.
yeah,
Like that would be a squad. But now that you don't have the Boone brothers plus Rodriguez, I mean, I understand Thomas is going to be a year older, which means he's going to be even better. But they're gonna need a number two scorer, and I'm interested to see where it comes from because it can't be Thomas, and maybe it's a Jalen Hill or a Bedford, maybe someone we're not talking about here, but Thomas is gonna need some help because I feel like he's gonna be he might lead the league and he actually might lead the league in points per
yeah.
game.
It sucks that we didn't get to see Jalen Hill play with the Boone brothers all that much, and Deaton Thomas, right, and Luis Rodriguez, because these guys could have seriously been one of the more dangerous teams in the Mountain West, and unfortunately, injuries just kind of depraved them of that last year. So I'm expecting Jalen Hill to be that number two option just because of how they brought him in here to be. He was averaging 10 points per game before that injury brought him down. So I would imagine they're going to insert him right there, probably slowly. I heard Kevin Kruger say he's probably going to see some slow minutes to start off the non-con games. They do have some pretty tough non-con opponents again in Creighton, Dayton, and Memphis. I'm imagining Creighton's going to want their revenge after what they
Oh
did to
yeah.
them in Vegas. Dude, that
But
was such a crazy match.
no, so here's the thing, like they're gonna compete against those teams, but like they just can't
Yeah,
take the bad loss, right? Like they can't like I don't have their schedule in front of me, but they
right.
can't lose to like the low major team that you're
Yeah,
paying several $1,000s to come to your crib. Like that can't happen. So we'll see what the Rebels look like, but from what I see, a team that could be all over the place once again. They got to prove it to me. This season, especially you got to maximize what you got here with Deed and Thomas because he is he is an all-world talent. And
Yeah,
I think he's gonna really get the spotlight this year, especially if the Rebels are good. So I'm excited to see how he looks after his freshman campaign. Let's go over to Reno with the Nevada Wolfpack, a team that I would say was good last year. Obviously, was second in the Mountain West in regular season. Really disappointed though, man. Like the way they went out in the Mountain West tournament, lost to Colorado State in the quarterfinal, right? And they blew a 20-point lead to Dayton, like in the
yeah,
first round of the NCAA tournament. Like, man, like this team, like with their collapses. And what stinks even more is that Jared Lucas and Keenan Blackshear aren't back, the dudes that were kind of like the heart and soul of this program, really, for the past 2 years, and kind of really put it all on the line. And for them to go out like that just is heartbreaking, probably for those guys, I imagine. And now they're not on this team. However, this is still a roster that is gonna. I still feel like it's gonna be really good because of their transfers. They got Trey Coleman and Nick Davidson back. Those were their guys that at Mountain West Media Day. KJ Himes, 6 year senior, maybe sixth or seventh year. I could have that wrong, but somewhere along those lines, he's been in college forever. They bring in Kobe Sanders from Cal Poly. Now, Cal Poly was one of the worst programs in all of college basketball last year. I think they won like one or two games last year, but Sanders was the one bright spot for the Mustangs last year, and he's going to be their starting point guard. He's got tons of size. He's like 6'6", something along those lines. Like he's going to be insane. He was one of the best free throw shooters last year in all of college basketball, and we talked about him, Jonathan, and Xavier Dussel, the best shooter in the Mountain West, I would say, probably streakiest and best shooter. You don't want to let him get hot. And even their dude off the bench, who I think, and I'll tell you right now, is going to be good. Two guys are going to be very good for them coming off the bench. Brandon Love from Texas State, big time Sun Belt piece. That he comes was big part of the Texas State kind of mini Cinderella run in the Sun Belt tournament last year. And they got Justin McBride, Big 12 dude. Like that's going to come and bring that Big 12 grit and grindness to his game over to the Mountain West. Big 12, you to just brutal every single night, kind of like how this league is. I like what Alfred has at the table here, and Davidson, a year older, Coleman, the best, probably one of the better two-way players in the league. I like what they have on paper, but they got to go win the big game, man.
yeah, dude. And I'm gonna just one up you there. I love what they have on paper here this year, and unfortunately, it didn't end so well last year for them, 13-5. But I'm so high on Kobe Sanders. I would scoreboard watch a lot of games from Cal Poly, specifically for this guy, dude. Nick, try 6'9" for a guard coming in
Thank you.
here,
I
dude.
didn't have his height. I didn't
That
have his
is
height in front of me, but yeah,
insane,
six
dude.
nine. That's ridiculous.
And I can just imagine other guards, just for some reason Alvaro Cardino is the first one pops in my head, but just the average length, like 6'3", 6'2" for guards, going up against guys like Kobe Sanders, who's 6'9". He averaged 19 points a game with Cal Poly. And I understand it's Cal Poly, but dude, I think he's that type of talent who's going to be able to literally replicate that again here in the Mountain West. He's the Mountain West newcomer of the year for good reason here. I think he's going to be a lot to fear when it comes to this team. And Xavier Dussel, man, Steve Alford gave him a lot of credit here. He said he might even end up breaking the Mountain West 3-point record when it's all said and done before the
Never
season ends.
know.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows if that happens? But I'm excited to see what these guys bring to the table. And you're bringing in a bunch of guys too, like Daniel Foster, Tyler Rollison coming off the bench, KJ Himes, like you mentioned. So it's some guys that we've seen here for a couple of years already. I'm excited because they have that great set of returners who are coming back. 5 or 6 guys who are familiar with the system, and you're bringing in some great transfers who they're not even underrated, man. There's everybody knows who you're bringing in. Like they're straight up talented guys. Like McBride, dude, couldn't even get too much action over there at OK State. He's gonna be seeing that action over here at the Reno Wolfpack and Mountain West. So, and I hadn't even talked about Nick Davis. Nick Davis is one of my best big men over here in the Mountain West. He actually got an All Mountain West honor finally this year. Trey Coleman as well, two-time All Defensive for Mountain West, and I think this guy has the potential to be Defensive Player of the Year for Mountain
Again,
West. Yeah, and I know they're pushing for that. So I'm thinking this team, dude, is going to be one of the most scary teams here in the conference. And They finished 13-5 last year in the Mountain West. I think they can do it a little bit. They can do a little bit better than that this year, man.
Man, Alfred's really got a breakthrough in March though. Like, I mean, San
Yeah,
Jose
that's
State
true.
beat him 2 years ago, and that was one heck of a squad, and they only managed to go to the first four. Last year was a disappointment. The way you lose to Dayton in the first round,
Yeah,
like, come on. We I think we all had Nevada coming out of the first round in our March Madness brackets, and then we turn on the score. We're like, what? Like, what happened here? So, I mean, Alfred's got to win the big game. It's that simple, and he hasn't been able to really do it yet out there in Reno. So that's the only thing holding me back from this team, really, is can Alfred rally the troops and bring them through? Let's go to New Mexico in Albuquerque with the New Mexico Lobos and a team that won the Mountain West tournament last year. They had to win 4 games in 4 days to make the NCAA tournament, all to just get an 11th seed and get blasted by Clemson. But overall, just a fun team to watch at the pit on the road. It all started with their guards last year in Jamal Mashburn and Jalen House. The problem is that they're both not returning. Mashburn went to Temple, which I thought was kind of crazy, if you ask me. And Jalen House just ran out of eligibility. JT Toppin, I think he was the freshman of the year. I think he should have been. He was co-freshman of the year, maybe. Who
yeah,
knows?
with Dean and Thomas.
Yeah. So I mean, you could. Hey, how crazy were the freshmen last year? Toppin, Falslev, and Thomas. I mean, you could have gave all three of those guys the award, quite honestly. So Toppin went to Texas Tech, which is a big loss, man. Like for a freshman, for kind of the way he impacted the Lobos last year, that is massive. The good news is they still got Donovan Dent. And I think you're gonna finally start to see Lobo fans already seen this before, but now I think the whole country is gonna be on Donovan Dent watch because I had some high praise for Thomas, but I think, Donovan Dent is a little bit older than Thomas and he's got a little bit more size. But man, what we saw with Donovan Dent, like during the first half of the non-conference, was incredible. I take back what I said about Thomas, great player. This is the guy that's going to lead the Mountain West in scoring this year. Donovan Dent. He's 20 plus point scorer. He's going to be able to do it all. I've never seen like a faster guy. Like when we saw him in person, ridiculous, Jonathan. Like when he is like driving downhill, you can't stop him. Like he does not miss layups. It's crazy. And the only problem I have about this team, they're gonna have the home court, they're gonna have the fans, they got Dent. Uh, who else is gonna like really make an impact? Like they need a big year out of Nelly Jr. Joseph, who didn't really have the full season last year because of the eligibility stuff. True Washington, who was kind of like their two-way player coming off the bench. He's probably gonna start. They have Mustafa Amzil coming back, but this bench, I don't know who's going to score on the bench for this team yet. And even in their exhibition game, it's like, okay, when all the starters sit down, who's going to be kind of like the guy to kind of lead the second unit here? Is that your take here on the Lobos here? Because that's the one thing that kind of jumps off the page, at least to me here.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that stands out to me. And last year, it's not like the record Mountain West wise was too crazy, 10-8. One of the things that stood out to me was just being able to go on that crazy one, beating all like top schools really in the conference, Boise, Colorado State, and then finally San Diego State for the trophy and take all. And remember, Nick, Donovan Dent was kind of sick. We were like right
He
next
was
to him.
more
He
than
was sick,
sick.
dude. Well, he had like
He couldn't even
whatever the
watch the
flu.
game.
Yeah, he had a flu, whatever you want to call it, but we didn't get to see him really in that impact situation like we got to see with Jalen House and Jamal Mashburn. So I think he's going to be playing with that chip on his shoulder, if you will, this year because he didn't get to end the year the way you want. Hey, you can start great all you want, but for the most part, players want to end the year they want on their terms, right? And Donovan Dent did not get to do that last year. I think he's gonna be able to do that this year. I am concerned about their bench. They did bring in some some transfers as well, but I feel like the transfers they brought in were more for like for defensive purposes, especially for Patino. They Atiki from BYU. I got to see him a lot when I was watching BYU basketball over there. It's just for defense. He 22 games off the bench. I don't know who's going to step up for them. They brought in Ibrahim Osako from Georgia Tech. Um, some guys here that really kind of feel like a Patino type of system, if you will. Just guys who maybe grind out like 10 to 15 minutes here, play hard defense, and get your shooters the ball only. And I feel like that's exactly what's going to happen here. It's going to be run Donovan Dent and True Washington, who's a great player himself, man. They talk highly of him and
Right.
really just run him both there to the ground there. And Mustafa Emzio, he's going to get himself
They're
inside
gonna
the
need a
paint and
bunch
get
of
his
threes from
points.
him.
Yeah, that's true too. Sending at 6'9", I wouldn't be surprised if he uses all of his frame. But somebody's going to have to make up for the departures of JT Toppin and Jalen House. So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be it. But regardless, I'm still high on this New Mexico team because of Donovan Dent and Patino back there. I think they know what they're doing, and the guys they brought in here, it's not going to stand out to you, but I think defensively, man, and rebounding, they're going to be one of the better teams in the Mountain West. They're going to be quiet and sneaky, and I think they have that same type of vibe where you get to the Mountain West, it's going to be kind of scary for those other top dogs when you see New Mexico because they do have a chance to repeat if they're able to kind of replicate what they did last year.
All right. Yes or no? New Mexico versus St. John's, the Patino Bowl. Does Richard Patino get it done versus Old Man?
No way in
I'm
kitchen.
with
No
you.
way. No
You
way.
know,
I
here's the
love the
thing.
fact that it's happening. I'm canceling everything for that game, dude.
Oh,
I'm gonna watch that
I'm with
game.
you. You and I
I'm
will
gonna
get
watch that
together and
game.
watch that game, all right?
I need to see his dad come out like in the white suit, and I need to see Richard come out like in a red suit and just have
Oh
like a crazy
man.
thing going on here.
I will
But
say
I'm so
this.
excited for that
I will
matchup.
say this. I know St. John's hit the portal very hard this year and, brought some big pieces. That just stinks that that game is kind of like in the non-conference and kind of early in the year because New Mexico is going to still be figuring things out. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, St. John's will kind of get like maybe a quad one win maybe by the end of the year, depending on what New Mexico turns into. But that's a game that I obviously have circled there just because of that aspect of it all. But yeah, the Lobos should be fun. We'll see what their second unit looks like. We got one last team to breeze over, and that's Boise State before we get into uh our uh our preseason polls. Boise State, best front court probably in the league. You got Omar Stanley, Tyson Degenhart preseason player of the year. They lose some players though. Chibuzo Ogbo goes to USC. Their number three scorer, Max Rice, their all-out scorer, gone. Their point guard, Roddy Anderson, gone. The good news is though for Boise State, they bring in their point guard that everyone's been ranting and raving about, in Alvaro Cardenas. We know him pretty dang well. They bring in Javon Buchanan for transfer from an NAIA school. So we'll see how he pans out. They got Dylan Anderson from Arizona. They got some pieces here, man. This is going to be a team. We all know Coach Leon Rice. We all know and love him for his antics on the sideline, but I don't think people realize how good of a coach he is. And it's all about him breaking through in March. What are they now? 0-8, 0-9 in March Madness now. Lifetime Boise State is. That's what it comes down to. They're going to win a bunch of games in the regular season. They're gonna win all the games, and who knows, might win the league. But it all comes down to March for this team, man.
Yeah, and for the polls, I heard Leon Rice talking about it. He was surprised that they were actually picked first for the
Yeah,
Mountain
that is
West.
true. First ever.
Yeah. That's crazy. That to me, that's crazy. First time ever. They've had plenty of talented teams before that. I know San Diego State and other top dogs were around there as well, but Boise State never having been picked with Leon Rice. That's an insane stat to me. Obviously now they're being picked for good reason. A whole bunch of returners and bringing in Cardenas, man, dude, he's a huge step up for Max Rice. I am so sorry, dude. This guy
Or
can actually
Roddy
play.
Anderson. Roddy
And
Anderson fit
Roddy
was
Anderson.
terrible last year.
The fit was terrible for Roddy. Yeah, I felt for him there. It didn't feel like that was his type of system to work with. But for Cardenas, it feels like it's the exact system. We mentioned him earlier. He was top 30 in the assists in the nation with San Jose State. Can you imagine what he's going to do with Boise State and
Well,
Leon? He's already all.
that might be the most unstoppable pick and roll in the league, right?
Yeah,
Probably like
dude.
any of those you run Stanley or Degenhart, and then you just go and run the thing with Cardenas. He's gonna get so many people open. Not to mention he can hit a big shot when it matters. We saw him do that
Yes.
tons. I mean, heck, he hit the game-winning three 2 years ago versus Boise State in San Jose. So like he had some big time shots last year when the game came down to it. He's gonna be a guy that is going to get, I feel like, some national recognition because he's gonna be on the top of assist boards. He's gonna be a guy that's probably 12, 15 points per game. This doesn't really worry me, the whole Max Rice departure, because Rice was kind of one of those guys you're gonna get 18 points out of them, 20 points out of them, heck, maybe even 25 points, but you can also get a plethora of bad shots in the process, and kind of like,
Yeah, and a bunch of
whoa,
turnovers.
right, and a bunch of turnovers. Like, we'll see what happens there. But it's definitely not ideal that you lose Max Rice, but they got their point guard, man, and Cardenas with Degenhart a year older, Stanley another year in this system. They're lethal, man.
And their bench isn't. They got Andrew Meadows still over there as well in their
Meadows
bench.
the guy that's going to be he's going to be the one to step up this year. I talked Tyson and Omar with Stanley when I talked to them. They both said that Meadows going to be kind of was still trying to figure it out. Sophomore
Yeah.
season, he's going to have to be their guy coming out the bench, or they're going to have to rely on one of those other guys probably.
Hey, Emmanuel Agbo, Chibuzo's younger brother is on the team, so who knows if he wants to step up and actually fill in that role. So guys who are familiar with that system, obviously, is a big deal for them as well. And they RJ Keene as well saw some time for them last year. I would imagine just a guy who's a veteran coming in here might take those minutes away from other freshmen here. So I'm interested to see who's going to step up. But man, all around Boise, this is the complete team, right? I mean, from starters to reserve, in my eyes, they're looking like the team to be. They earned a number one spot for a reason. Dagenhart, he's on the Naismith Player of the Year watch list, which is crazy to me. So him and Cardenas, it's kind of like a pick'em battle. Then you kind of forget about Stanley, who's also all Mountain West team. Kind of
Yeah,
feels like all of Boise's all Mountain West, at least their starters, at least.
yeah,
So
sure
yeah.
looks like that. And I
So
will say this: that Chibuzo and Emmanuel are not related.
oh, that sucks.
Yeah, they're
Really?
not they're not related to this. Their name sounds the same, but does not
Is it
look the
Ugbo and
same.
Agbo?
Yeah, that's
Ah,
what
that
it
makes
is.
sense. I thought it was
Yeah.
Emmanuel. Okay, because they had Max Rice's younger brother on the team last year with Glenn. I'm surprised they
Yeah,
didn't
or
bring him
yeah,
back on the team.
yeah, yeah. They had Cade Rice, and now
Okay, Kate.
yeah,
Okay.
Cade Rice was the guy, and he transferred out. Jonathan, let's get
Wow.
into the preseason polls. I know you got your list right in front of you, but we'll kind of start from the bottom to the top here. 11th, who do you got in your Mountain West regular season standings?
I hope it's the same team you have at 11, Nick, because it's Air Force, just like
Yeah.
it was last year.
Unfortunately, it is
Yeah.
Air Force, but I do think overall, like I think there might be kind of like less wins at the top, and Air Force kind of might have like 4 wins in the league this year, something like that. I
Okay.
don't know if the math will math, but Air Force they will be more feisty than they were last year. I am intrigued by that team a little bit. Who do you got 10th?
Fresno State, man. I can't see it with them this year. I think they're a bottom tier team with the new coach, a bunch of JUCO transfers. I got to see it to believe it from them, but I'm not too high on them at all. I'm placing them at 10th right there.
Yeah, I have him. I have him at 10th as well. Who do you got at ninth?
Good ninth. It was a tough battle for me to put ninth. It took me a while to actually put this list together down, Nick. But I had the Wyoming Cowboys at ninth. I also imagining them having a way better record, conference wise, and probably just getting to a little bit more. Getting their wins at home to me is the most important part, and why I have them sitting at ninth. I love Sundance Wicks and what he's been able to bring to the table, along with the guys they have here, and just his energy. At eighth spot is speaking of Colorado State, I have them at eighth there as well. So just right on top of Wyoming. I did mention during earlier that these guys were kind of around the same tier. So I do have Colorado State rounding off that top eight. So I do Air Force, Fresno State, Wyoming, and Colorado State with Nico Medved. I did tell you, Nick, that I see them taking a big drop off. So I'm pulling Colorado State. I'm sorry, I might eat my words again. Who
You
knows?
have
These guys
Colorado
might go
State at eighth.
yeah, who knows? They might
Me
go 12
too.
0 again or something. Okay, cool. Let's go.
So
All right.
you and I are right on board with everything here. We got Fresno at 11th,
Might get a
or
little bit
excuse me,
crazier
Air
after this
Force at
poll.
11, for
Yeah,
10th Fresno,
yeah.
ninth Wyoming, eighth Colorado State. Who do you have at seventh?
Las Vegas, University of Las Vegas
Wow.
at 7. Yeah, I'm just not. I can give my reasoning for it, but I'm not sold on them at all either. I'm just a little smear on top of Colorado State. I feel like they're in that same boat. Could be vice versa, but they're in that top 7 for me for UNLV.
So I thought I was getting bold here with San Jose State at 7 and throwing the bias. I threw the bias completely out the window, and I thought seventh was fair for them for a preseason. They finished 10th last year, 10th, 11th. I think they're gonna finish over Colorado State. And look, the fact that we'll see what they look like, but I again they're gonna have to, I still think, prove it in some ways. And I still think when they get into those Mountain West environments, it could be a little bit difficult for them. But I thought seventh was fair for them for a preseason poll for me. I'm assuming you got San Jose in sixth then.
I do. How do you know? Yeah, I do
I
have them
mean,
at
I
six.
come on,
Yeah, I
I know
can't put
you
them at
pretty
top
well,
five,
man.
but I do have them at top six there. I just think they're flat out better than UNLV and Colorado State. I don't know if they'll beat them in their games, their head to head matchups. I just feel like record wise, Mountain West, I think San Jose State will come out on top in that top six, and I think they deserve it, man. They're after two wins last year. They could have had a whole bunch more under their belt if it wasn't for some fourth quarter collapses. I think they earned that top six spot, and they're going to have to earn it within this Mountain West.
All right, so you got San Jose at six. I have UNLV at sixth. Now, this is when things are going to get a whole lot more interesting because I don't think you and I are going to be on the same page here. Who do you have at fifth?
Utah State.
All right, same here. Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Wow, you and I are just reading each other's mail here. Utah State, I have at fifth. Now, I did make this poll before I went to Mountain West Media Day, so I did not make any changes here after talking to the players or anything. I held my ground here.
I hope you wouldn't want to change after
Didn't let
talking
the
to the
player
players.
bias swing me at all. So yeah, I have Utah State at fifth. I think Calhoun's group is gonna be pretty good. Who do you have at four?
San Diego State, and yeah, it took me kind of crushed my soul putting them at four, but yeah, I'm like just the top three teams who I have left on this team. I just think that they can't really get over that hump. There's a lot of question marks with San Diego State. I think fourth was, in my eyes, like not disrespectful, just right there, like just disrespectful, and kind of says who San Diego State is. They weren't all too impressive in the Mountain West last year,
No,
so
they
four
weren't,
to me is a
especially
good
the
number.
regular season,
Yeah,
right? They weren't.
yeah.
They struggled a little bit. I have New Mexico at fourth. I just think that bench might be a little bit might take a little time in the conference play to figure things out. And yeah, I think the Lobos will struggle a little bit. I think losing the guards a little bit will also might regress a little bit there. At third, I got Nevada, John.
At third, I have
Nevada,
New
I
Mexico.
think that's fair. You already know my one downside with Nevada. Okay, Steve Alford's got to bring it. He might bring it
Yeah,
in the regular season, but especially in March, can he win a big game in March, even if it is a Mountain West game? Because we've seen his teams regress. So, well, I think that was fair for the Wolfpack. Who do you have at third?
yeah. Third is New Mexico Lobos with Patino and crew. I think they'll be able to figure it out eventually, even if they do get off to a slow start. I'm very high on Donovan Dent. I think this guy is one of the best players in the Mountain West. And I just think defensively they can put up against any team here. And rebounding wise, they're not going to have a problem with that. And that's what Mountain West just eats on. It just rebounds, and that's how you win games. I think hopefully they'll be able to secure that third spot.
And at number two, I do have San Diego State. You had them at four. I have them at two. I think just got to believe in the culture, man. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I believe in the culture of Reno Tahoe area because I have Nevada at
Ooh,
number two. Yeah, I have these guys on a
wow.
huge jump, man, with Alfred. And I'm on the same boat with you with the coach, but I think this time he's actually able to prove it here. I feel like he has the pieces, man, and having a 6'9" guard to me and bringing back a whole bunch of returners, I feel like they have, besides Boise State, one of the more returners in the Mountain West coming in here. So I'm really high on Nevada, and I think they can really give it to any of these top teams left. I'm a big fan of what they're bringing into the table this year. I'm going to be watching a lot of their games this year for sure.
And number one, we both have Boise, and we all know why, because they got the point
Right.
guard, you got Tyson Degenhart, you got Omar Stanley, and you got the front court. And I think this is the year Leon Rice and company finally come through. Um, yeah, I think I can speak for both of us there. We already talked about our explanation. We don't need to go any more further. Boise State regular season champions, tournament champions, we'll see. But the Mountain West is going to be very good this year. We think in 4 to 5 teams in the big dance. And I think we'll see. The home courts are going to be very good this year. Uh, can't wait to watch there. Jonathan, I know you're going to be doing your thing with KSJS this year. You and I are going to get a bunch of games on the air together. Um, college basketball right on around the corner. Can't wait for it.
Yeah, Monday. I'm gonna be keeping my eyes all on the scoreboards and throughout all of Monday and really just the rest of the year, man. Football is gonna be second nature to me when Monday comes around now.
Yeah, I know.
That's just for me though in basketball.
Got
I
to get
love
in the college
basketball.
hoops mode, man.
Yeah, I can't wait for it.
Well, there you have it. Jonathan Canas, joining us for the Mountain West Conference preview before the college basketball season officially tips off Monday, November 4th. We will put all Jonathan's socials and where you can find all of his work in the description, wherever you may be watching or listening to this. Once again, I am your host, Nick Urias, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.